I would like to welcome the Ambassador of Israel to Cyprus, Mr. Oren Anolik, who was very nice to accept our invitation for a recorded video, since he will be away on the day that this video is presented at the 5th Cyprus Forum on the 3rd of October. Welcome, Mr. Ambassador, to this conversation.
Thank you very much, Nicolas. I'm very grateful for this invitation, and thank you for enabling me to do this. As you said, unfortunately, I will not be here during the real live Cyprus Forum, but I hope that things that I will say today would still be valid and relevant by the time of the broadcast itself.
Yeah, actually, we later realized that the 2 days that the Cyprus Forum is taking place this year is an important Hebrew feast, and usually we get a good number of speakers from Israel, and unfortunately this year it was not possible, so we'll make sure next year not to do the same mistake.
You know, it's actually Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year. So these 2 days, 3rd and 4th of October, are a major holiday for the Jewish people. So unfortunately, I assume that it will be very difficult to get Israeli participants. Just note this: every year it's on a different date because we use the lunar calendar, so it moves somewhere between early September to early October.
Yeah, it's similar to the Orthodox Easter. So thank you again for being here. I will split our discussion into 5 sections. One is on the current conflicts in Gaza and Lebanon. The second one is on the Iranian threat. The third one is on the changing alliances and dynamics in the region, in the Eastern Mediterranean. The fourth one is Cyprus-Israel relations, and the fifth one is energy security and trade connectivity in the region.
Yes. I just need to say this.
Yes.
I think that your intentions are good, but I think the reality will show you that this separation doesn't really exist, that those issues very much intertwine and are very much related to each other. We start a conversation and you see how these things come together.
Yeah, usually I am very organizational person, so I want to put things in boxes, but you're right that things and issues overlap. So yes, I will start with the first question, which is how is Israel handling the simultaneous challenges in Gaza and the tensions now with the Hezbollah in Lebanon? And do you think that there is a risk of a broader regional conflict? And how is Israel preparing for such a scenario?
So I have to say that I think that we will be making a mistake if we try to divide this into 2 conflicts, one in Gaza and one in Lebanon, without looking at the bigger picture. Because the bigger picture is that Gaza and Lebanon, Hamas and Hezbollah, are just 2 of the tentacles of the octopus, which is Iran. Because what you see in our region right now is the outcome of a strategy by the Iranian regime. Because you just mentioned these 2, but we have also the Houthis in Yemen who are involved. We have also Shiite militias in Syria and in Iraq who are involved and are shooting on Israel these days as well. So it is not a conflict in Gaza, a conflict in Lebanon. This is part of a broader conflict as it is, in which the Iranian regime is trying to suffocate Israel in this ring of fire around us. What triggered the current situation, of course, is the October 7th massacre committed by Hamas almost a year ago. I am not saying that the Iranians ordered Hamas to go ahead with this massacre. It's not what I'm saying. I assume, and from what we understand, that Hamas did not coordinate the timing of its attack with Iran or with Hezbollah. I think both of them were a bit surprised. But what Hamas did was very much aligned with the strategy and with the thoughts of the Iranian regime in this regard. This brutal, atrocious attack in which more than 1,200 people were massacred in Israel and more than 250 were taken hostage is very much part of an ideology that doesn't think that Israel has the right to exist, that doesn't want to live in peace and coexistence with Israel, but want to try to drive away the Israeli people and the Jewish people out of this region, because they believe that all of this territory between, as they say, the river and the sea, the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea, is a Muslim holy land, Waqf, and therefore there is no room for a Jewish state to exist anywhere between those in this territorial in this territory. And what happened as a result of this attack on October 7th, the day after, Hezbollah joined the fighting. Now, he didn't go all in on this. It was not a full-fledged war, but Hezbollah wanted to give support and assistance to Hamas by attracting some of the attention of the Israeli defense forces towards Lebanon, so we cannot only focus on Gaza. And he tried to do it in a measured way. Now, it has been almost a year now since Hezbollah started shooting at Israel, not the other way around. And we responded. During this year, we saw, I would call it a slow escalation. I think that all sides involved, Israel, Hezbollah, and Iran, didn't want to get into a full-fledged war, each one for its own reasons. But the escalation, we can see how the intensity, the range became higher and longer as time passed, until Israel decided it will not anymore continue with this situation in which Hezbollah is trying to exhaust us, and therefore we see what we see in the last week or two, that we are trying to make Hezbollah understand what is the price that the organization and the country he took hostage, which is Lebanon, are paying for what Hezbollah is doing. So Hezbollah tied himself to Hamas and to the Hamas terrorist attack on Israel, and we are telling Hezbollah, you need to untie yourself, because if you continue to tie yourself to Hamas, the price that you are going to pay is going to be tremendously painful. When we are having this conversation, I cannot say where this will be, how this is going to unfold. I hope the development will be such that there will be enough sense on the other side to understand where this might go ahead, and push the brakes to make sure it stops. I don't know, but we are very determined to not let this continue as it was for the last almost 1 year. Yep. For us, there are two main goals in this regard of Hezbollah. One is to break this connection they made with the situation in Gaza, and the second one is to bring back safely to their homes the 70,000 Israelis that were evacuated from their houses along the border with Lebanon a year ago. We have 70,000 people that are living as refugees in Israel, unable to go back to their homes because Hezbollah is targeting those homes. Hezbollah has fired almost 1,000 anti-tank missiles directly into homes in the northern part of Israel, destroying them, and you cannot let people live there. We want to create a situation that these people can go back and live in their homes along the border. For this, what is required is a full implementation of Security Council Resolution 1701. This resolution that was adopted in 2006 following what we call the Second Lebanon War actually calls for the disarmament of Hezbollah, and it claims that between the border with Israel and the Litani River, there could be only one armed force, which is the Lebanese army. There is no room for any other force, and the reality is that Hezbollah is the one that is there, much stronger than the Lebanese army, and we cannot let Hezbollah continue being there. It sounds very well when I try to describe it. Reality is always more difficult, and we'll have to wait and see how this unfolds.
Yeah.
So the long answer to your question, do you want me to refer to Gaza as well now?
No, I think this is pretty clear, and it's useful to build on this introduction. The second part of the question was how is Israel preparing for this situation, and I mean, how do you expect things to unfold? I mean, are you prepared for a war for more than 1, 2, 3 years? Is there a plan?
Israel national defense doctrine or national security doctrine actually always calls for short wars or short armed conflicts. We are a democratic liberal society. We would prefer to be in a situation of peace and stability. It's much better for our people and to our neighbors as well. So this is the preference. The thing is that we live in a certain reality, and this reality is that we are surrounded by some neighbors, not all of them, but some neighbors, that the ideology that guides them is a fundamentalist, extremist one. For Hamas, it is much more important to kill Israelis than to make sure that the Palestinians would live in peace and prosperity. This is the ideology of Hamas. This is what it is. This is the mindset. It's something which is very difficult sometimes for Westerners to fully understand. I have these conversations with people who tell me everybody wants to live in peace and make sure that his children are doing well and are safe. Well, no. This is true for those who have certain values that cherish life, that cherish prosperity, that cherish those kind of things that you and I understand very easily. But it is not true for those people, and I'm not saying they're the majority, but there is quite a large group of people that they actually, the culture that they admire is the culture of death. For them, it's either we kill the Jews, we kill the Israelis, we kill the infidels, we kill those that are different than us, or we die trying to do so. In any case, this is better for us because either we are successful in this or we become martyrs, jihadists. This is what guides them. This is a very difficult thing for people sometimes to grasp because people tend to believe that what they think as the basic values is true for everybody. Unfortunately, this is not the case.
Yes.
Now, so we are not interested in a protracted war. Actually, the war in Gaza and the war with Hezbollah in Lebanon can be finished tomorrow if they just stop doing what they are doing. Let's take Hamas, for example, and give up and surrender. Because if they surrender, we are not going to kill people that surrender, which is not the case the other way around. We saw what happened when Hamas came into Israel on October 7th. But Hamas can stop the suffering of Palestinians tomorrow if they just stop fighting, because they know they cannot beat Israel. They know that they do not have the strength, the force that is required to beat the Israeli army. But they continue doing this for different reasons, because they want to show that they prevailed, that they are still alive. The price that is being paid is insignificant for them.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate to most of the things you said as a Greek Cypriot, and the values and everything you talked about, and the situation and everything. Okay. Now moving further to the military part, what are your thoughts regarding the other important part of a war, the humanitarian crisis, both in Gaza and now in Lebanon? And what are your thoughts about this?
I and Israel, we are very sorry and we regret the fact that there are innocent people that are paying a very difficult price. We take this into consideration in what we are doing. We are not in any way indifferent to this. If we take Gaza as an example, we have a very clear humanitarian policy in which we are trying, to distinguish between civilians and fighters. This is part of the philosophy that we are using and what we are doing. This is why we are allowing humanitarian assistance to be brought into Gaza, and in spite of different propaganda. I must say there is no starvation in Gaza. Since the beginning of the war, we had over 50,000 truckloads coming into Gaza, which is a bit more than 1 million tons of aid, which is in average about 1,000 per week or 200 per day, which supplies enough of humanitarian assistance required for the population. It doesn't mean that everything gets to the person that needs to get it. There are some difficulties with distribution inside Gaza, which is not so much in our hands as it is in the hands of the people in Gaza. And Hamas is looting some of the aid, is taking it for its own purposes, or it sells it in overpriced prices in the black market. But the amount that goes into Gaza is supposed to be sufficient for everyone. We are doing more, and this is true what I'm saying right now, both for Gaza and for Lebanon. We are warning civilians to stay away of areas that we are about to attack or to bombard. I need to say something here about the nature, the characteristics of the war that was imposed on us. Both Hamas and Hezbollah are embedding themselves within civilian population on purpose. It is not by coincidence that Hamas put its headquarters under hospitals or under schools or under kindergartens. This is their strategy because they believe that it will give them immunity, that in this way they will be immune from any kind of attacks, which is, by the way, not the situation according to international law. Once a military or terrorist organization is using even civilian facilities for terrorist or for military purposes, it makes the place he is in into a legitimate target. But even then, we are taking precautions and we are trying to make sure that we are not hurting civilians. We're not always successful. I'm not going to tell you that mistakes don't happen. I'm not going to tell you that no innocent civilians were hurt in Gaza. No, this is not true. It happens. But it is not a policy. It is not a strategy. We do not aim at hitting civilians. Unlike, by the way, our enemies, both Hezbollah and Hamas, when they are shooting, they are firing their rockets into Israel, they are aiming at the civilian population. That's exactly what they are doing. We are trying we're trying to not to do this, but we need to understand where is our enemy located. It is embedded on purpose inside populated areas in trying to use civilians as human shield. So I cannot say, and I will not say, that we do not have innocent civilians that are being hurt. This will not be true. But I can say that if you try to compare the way that Israel is fighting those terrorists in Gaza to the way that the international coalition was fighting ISIS, for example, you would see that, I know it sounds a bit cold and mathematics related, but the ratio between the number of citizens and the number of combatants that is being targeted and hit eventually, that Israel is achieving is much better than the one that was achieved in the war against ISIS or the war against Al-Qaeda at the time. So we are aware of this and we are taking it into consideration and we are trying to do this the best way we can. We're trying to learn from the mistakes. We have legal advisors that are following everything that is being done. They are making sure that what we are doing is according to international law. For us, this is important. We abide by international law in spite of what you can hear many people that are accusing us. Israel is a law-abiding country. We believe in those values, and we're trying to act in the light of those values.
Yeah. Okay, I have 2-3 comments on what you said. First of all, I think that, if you are trying to compare this with Al-Qaeda or other situations, maybe now the timing is different because the international community is like thirst for there is a need for peace and de-escalation of conflicts and not the contrary. And after 2 years of COVID and the war in Ukraine and now the war in Israel, and the international community seeing that the tensions are increasing instead of decreasing. I think maybe it's one of the reasons that things are as they are. This is my first comment. And then I said before that I can relate to what you said before about the values of Israeli people as a Greek Cypriot. But as in the public discussion in the Republic of Cyprus, there's always the question of self-criticism. So do you think the actions of Israel through the years have either created enemies or at least gave an excuse to people to jeopardize peace? As I said, this is...
Just for you to understand the question, you're talking about people in the international community, or talking about people, the Palestinians or the Lebanese? What do you...
The Palestinians or the Lebanese. So the policy of Israel all through the years, whether it has given an excuse or in any way created enemies around it.
I would start first of all by saying that I totally accept your remark about self-criticism. There's plenty of self-criticism happening in Israel as we speak.
Yeah.
You can see that we are a vibrant democracy. We have a variety of views in Israel. I don't know to what extent the international media is covering this, but there are people in Israel that have different views than one of the government and are criticizing it, and they are allowed to voice their criticism against the government. So I totally share this point of view. I understand the question. And I will not say that Israel has never made mistakes along the way. This is not true. There are plenty of things that we could have done better along the years, for sure. But I do have a disagreement about the fact to what extent you can put the blame on the Israeli policy when you speak about the position, let's take the Palestinians in this regard, vis-a-vis Israel. Because this conflict hasn't started on October 7th last year. This is a century-old, at least, conflict. And we had, for many years, the issue of the animosity, and especially the hatred towards the Jews and the Israelis coming from our neighbors. And this is way before there was occupation. This is way before there were settlements. So it seems that it's very easy along the years to come up with new excuses. Oh, this is because of settlement. This is because of the occupation. But the root cause goes way, way before that. So it just seems that it's like another pretext. Let me just say something in this regard. I'm sorry if I speak too much, but I feel strongly about some of those issues. I think, and I would say this. First of all, if you look at the policy of Israel, at least in the last 30 years or so, we go back to the Oslo Accords of 1993, 1994, 1995, there were real efforts by the Israeli government that was supported by the Israeli population to find a solution to this problem. The reason that you have today a Palestinian Authority which is governing the West Bank, the Judea and Samaria, is because Israel negotiated with the Palestinians and reached agreements that allow this autonomy. Why did we do it? Because we were forced to do it? Because the Palestinians were so powerful we couldn't resist it? No, we did it because we thought this is the best thing, that we need to achieve peace with our neighbors. And this process, and by the way, this process did not end in the 90s. There were other attempts along the years to try to find solutions, going all the way to the President Trump proposal for a permanent solution. But what we see is a repeated refusal by the Palestinians to make the necessary steps to go all the way to a solution. And this is a very interesting point as to why is this happening. And on this, I want to say something. One of the main issues that needs to be reconciled and solved here is the issue of the Palestinian refugees. Okay. Now, there are those among the Palestinians, the more moderate ones, who speak about the two-state solution. Sounds good, two-state solution. And in our conflict, this is something that the international community believes is the solution. Now, I just want to say the full title or the headline of this is two states for two nations. The idea behind this two-state solution is we're going to have two states, one state for the Jewish people, one state for the Palestinian people. But then, when you speak with the Palestinians, those that actually want to see a two-state solution, not like Hamas, who doesn't want to see it at all, you find something very interesting. You find that they say, let's have a two-state solution. And then we'll have a Palestinian state within the borders of the pre-1967 war in the Gaza and the West Bank. Okay. All the Jewish settlements need to be taken out of there. Okay. Then all the Palestinian refugees need to go back. Here's the interesting part. Go back where? Because what you understand then that what the Palestinians are saying, they're not going to go back to the Palestinian state. No, they need to go back to Jaffa and Haifa and Jerusalem and Nazareth and all the places in Israel where their grandparents left almost 80 years ago. So then you have one state, which is a Palestinian state without Jews, and a second state, which will actually be a binational state for both Jews and Palestinians. So what kind of a two-state solution actually this is? And this is the point, because the Palestinians are unwilling to give up on what they call the right of return. And as long as they don't give it up, it's very hard to see how you can find a real solution. And this is among Palestinians that actually want to see a two-state solution. But Hamas, who is, if you remember, won the last election that were held for the Palestinian parliament back in 2006 as the majority, doesn't believe in this at all. He believes in a one state only, a religious fundamentalist Muslim state that will be run only by the Palestinians for the Palestinians.
Yeah. Okay, and concluding this section, what is, based on all you said, what is your vision and Israel's vision on the Palestinian issue? What do you expect ideally to happen for the issue to be solved?
Look, I can at the moment not give you anything more than just empty slogans.
Yes.
The slogans will be: we want to live in peace and coexistence with a Palestinian state, Palestinian neighbors. We think that having a successful, prosperous Palestinian neighbors will be good also for Israel. But this is a bit of a slogan.
Yes.
I tell you what, it's like, I'll give you a metaphor. It's like we are discussing now a space program. We are going to have a colony on Mars, and now let's discuss how we're going to build the fences that will separate the different houses on this colony on Mars. It has the same kind of relevance right now as to where we are at this moment. I'm not saying that this is insolvable. I am saying that there needs to be a change in the mindset of how the future looks like. Unfortunately, generations of Palestinians are being brought up on textbooks that do not call for coexistence, do not call for peace. They picture the Israelis as ruthless, violent occupiers that are not have any room to live next to them. This incitement is being planted very deeply within the Palestinian society. Again, not everybody, there are others, but I cannot say that the others are the majority within the Palestinian society at the moment. Without some real change in this mindset, it's going to be very difficult to find a solution.
Yeah. Again, I feel the same as in Cyprus, but maybe in 100 years we go to live in Mars, both of us.
I will not be alive in 100 years.
Our people. Yes. Okay. Going to the next topic, the Iranian threat. You characterize Iran as an octopus. So Iran continues to be perceived as a significant threat to Israel's security, especially through the proxies in Lebanon and Gaza. And how do you assess the current level of Iranian influence in this conflict? You partly answered this, but can you give us a few more details and about the new president of Iran? Do you see any change? And do you see Iran getting involved directly in the conflict?
Okay, I need to start with some of your assumptions and then try to answer your question. Yeah. Iran is not a threat to Israel, or not only a threat to Israel. Iran is a global threat, and for sure a regional one. I mean, I'll speak in a second about Iran's role in our region, but Iran is also the main supplier of weapons, of drones to Russia in the war against Ukraine. The Iranian outreach and their involvement in what's happening goes way beyond our region. The number one threat from Iran, by the way, which is again not only for Israel, is the Iranian military, and I emphasize the word military, nuclear program. The Iranians, for almost 3 decades now, are making efforts to reach a point in which they will have nuclear weapons. This is a huge threat. It's a huge threat not just because of the risk of them using nuclear weapon once they have it. Even acquiring it will change the situation in our region, because there are other countries in our region that will not stay in any way indifferent to something like this. So if the Iranians will make a push for this, we need to see what happens with Saudi Arabia, with Turkey, with Egypt and other countries. So the Iranian threat goes beyond a direct threat to Israel. As for the regional threat of Iran, so we mentioned the proxies. You mentioned it. I mentioned it before. Iran is, I used the word proxy, octopus before. I would also say Iran is the head of the snake. They are the mastermind behind the undermining of stability in the region. They are the ones that are supplying, arming, financing, directing, giving knowledge and know-how to all those elements in the region that do not want to see stability, that do not want to see cooperation, that do not want to see prosperity happening in this regard. So we mentioned Hezbollah, we mentioned Hamas, we mentioned Palestinian Islamic Jihad, we can mention the Houthis in Yemen, the militias in Iraq and in Syria, because Iran has an ideology. They are not hiding it. It's called exporting the revolution. The Islamic revolution in Iran, the Iranian regime believes that it needs to be exported to other countries in the region, and they are undermining not just towards Israel, but also in other moderate Sunni Arab countries as well, trying to undermine the regimes in those countries as well. So the threat from Iran is much more than just a threat to Israel. Now, you said that they are not directly involved, but I need to remind you that on April 14th, there were around 300 ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones that Iran fired directly into Israel. So they are not only they are not hiding anymore; they are out there. So they are heavily involved in what's happening, and this is a major threat. This is a major threat to the region. This is a major threat to everybody who wants to see a different future. And which is, by the way, it's a bit of a pity, because the Iranian people and Iran, I'm not talking about the regime.
Culture.
It's a culture, it's a civilization. They are, you have there very serious people, businessmen, academicians, very good universities. I mean, they have the capabilities to make them a real positive element in our region. Unfortunately, under the current regime, this is not the case. What is required in the case of Iran is international cooperation, which is focused on putting more pressure on Iran. Iran responds to this pressure. You mentioned a new president. Look, this is almost funny, I have to say. Why is this almost funny? Because we've been in this before. We saw it when Khatami came into power. There is this almost naive belief in the West. Oh, we have this new moderate leader. Let's see what we can do with him. But when it comes to security and foreign policy, the president of Iran has no say. He is not the one who calls the shot. He's not even a decision maker. When it comes to issues of the nuclear program, of security policy, of foreign policy, the one who calls the shot is the supreme leader, Mr. Khamenei. He's the same person for I don't even remember how many centuries now already. I think almost 3 centuries. He's the same person with the same ideology, with the same way. There is no real change in the policy of Iran, and actually, it's almost. I need to be more careful. I'm a diplomat. I will not say the word pathetic, but this hope for a change, there's something new there. These are unfortunately, empty gestures
Yeah.
that we should not fall for. A real change can come only if the decision makers in Iran will decide they want to change their policies.
Yeah. Okay, changing the dynamics in the East Med. Turkey's recent overtures to normalize relations with Israel and other regional players. How does Israel perceive the role of Turkey in the changing dynamics in the Eastern Mediterranean? And how do you envision the future of Israel-Turkey relations, especially regarding security and energy cooperation?
I need to once again make raise some doubts about some of the assumptions in your question.
Yep.
The first thing I would have to say is that there were efforts by Turkey to try to warm up relations with Israel, but this ended a year ago. I mean, it happened up until the Hamas terrorist attack on Israel on October 7th. Ever since then, Turkey changed its policy once again. Turkey is among the most hardest criticizing Israel among almost the entire international community. The way Mr. Erdogan and his ministers and other prominent figures in Turkey are talking about Israel, it goes beyond any kind of legitimate criticism, even into the realms of anti-Semitism. So there is no overtures, there is nothing happening in this regard now with Israel. I can say in a very general way, looking beyond the current situation, it is not our interest to have another enemy in the region. So we are not interested in turning this into a permanent enmity or rivalry with Turkey. We used to have good relations in the past with Turkey. I cannot see in the foreseeable future anything even remotely close to what happened in the past. The only thing I can say is that I hope we can have some sort of normal relations in the future with Turkey, which is based mostly on trade, based mostly on economic relations, commercial relations. This is the thing that I can, at the moment, aspire for. Now, Turkey is a major power in this region. We cannot disregard this, overlook this. Turkey is a big country, it's a serious country with a big economy. They are playing a role here, and I don't see this also changing. We, as Israel, we have very good relations with Cyprus and with Greece. We are cooperating now for more than a decade on a series of issues, including security, including energy, including commerce, including climate. I mean, you name it. And this is our priority. It will continue to be our priority. I mean, for us, Greece and Cyprus are closest. I have to be careful with the word allies, but closest friends in this region, and we have very, very good relations with them. And we want this to just get stronger and stronger. This will be our priority when it comes to our foreign policy.
And basically, you have covered my fourth question, which was about Israel and Cyprus relations. Or if you want to say, any plans in the future about how to deepen our cooperation or anything that is being discussed. I know that maybe it's not the right time now for you to discuss this, but if there is anything to announce at this point about Israel-Cyprus relations.
There are no announcements.
Yeah.
And by the way, I think it's a good thing there are no announcements,
Yes.
because there are plenty of things and plenty of fields in which we are cooperating. I think that this cooperation will continue to get better and better. It's a very broad spectrum of things. I mentioned some of it before, but no, we are cooperating in investment and trade, in agriculture, in climate and the environment, in health, in people-to-people kind of relations, and this in addition to the traditional cooperation that we have on political matters, on energy, on security. It's a very broad spectrum, and I think that we are on a good track in all of those elements. As I said before, I have no announcement right now, but I continue to be very optimistic about the potential of what can be achieved here, bilaterally, trilaterally, and beyond.
Excellent. And relevant to that, energy security, trade connectivity, do you have anything to comment on the recent developments regarding the Great Sea Interconnector or the previous discussion about the EastMed pipeline?
Well, as for the interconnector, I can say our Minister of Energy actually made a statement that shows what we think about this. Israel's policy and Israel's stand was always very positive about the idea of connecting the electricity grids of Israel, Cyprus, and Greece. We think that this is the right strategic choice to make. It's good for all countries involved. It goes beyond the question of just financial matters. It goes into energy security, into a redundancy of suppliers, into a better competition between manufacturers of electricity. We believe it's a good project. It seems as if it's on a good track right now, that the governments of Cyprus and Greece have reached some sort of understanding of how this needs to be promoted. And I sincerely hope that in the near future, Israel and Cyprus will be able to conclude their negotiation about the Israel-Cyprus leg of this interconnector. It's a long-term project. I will not be the ambassador by the time that this project will be over, but I hope to be the ambassador when we are reaching the agreements on the Israel-Cyprus leg in the next, I cannot even say how long, but I'm here for another 2 years. I hope that within those 2 years.
Okay, we hope so too. That brings us to the end of our conversation. Mr. Ambassador, I would like to thank you. Hopefully next year we can welcome you physically to the Cyprus Forum. We'll try not to put it on the Jewish New Year again next year. So again, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for being such a gracious host. It was not painful at all, so I appreciate this. But I'm at your disposal whenever you would like me to again. I'll be more than happy to come again.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.